Greetings, my friends. Jason Archer here with episode 2 of Dogs of WOD. I'm sitting here with Scott Porter on a nice day here in Phoenix, and we are going for take 2 because we had a computer die on us right in the middle of the first recording. So just to let you know, we had some awesome stuff, and we're going to do our best to repeat it. However, we cannot guarantee that that will be the case. So if this one sucks, it's because we're frustrated at this point.
Yeah, we've talked about all the information twice now, so hopefully we can consolidate it this time.
Yeah, exactly. How many CrossFitters does it take to figure out a voice recorder? Here we go. So there's lots of noise happening on the internet about this young lady out of Europe. I think her name is Sam Briggs or something. You ever heard of her?
Yeah, Sam Briggs, former CrossFit Games champ last year and I believe the year before, and so out of the Europe region and didn't qualify for the CrossFit Games. So that's kind of the hot topic right now on Facebook and all the other social media sites.
Yeah, I think it was Annie. I think Thor's daughter was the year before.
Okay.
But yeah, she's, not to take anything away from Sam, she's an incredible competitor. But that kind of brings up the topic that we wanted to cover today, which was the concept of general physical preparedness, and how that kind of relates to what's happening with Sam. Here you have this fantastic athlete out of Europe. I think she's a public servant. Doesn't she work in the fire department in
Yeah.
Europe?
As far as I know, that's still what she does. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's always in some sort of physical role, in and out of the gym, constantly training, year round for this sort of event. Then she has event 2 come up through the CrossFit Games regional, which is you get a one shot to go as far as you can go on a handstand in 3 minutes?
Right.
And she has a miscue, goes down early, and then that drops her below the line to make the regionals cutoff. So people are squealing and just out there in the world wondering, is she going to get an invite because there's some sort of loophole or there's some sort of rule that CrossFit reserves the right to bring in former champions or competitors that they deem worthy.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion is I don't think that she should, based on, competition and, the fact that CrossFit is supposed to be about being prepared for anything that's thrown at you. And in this case, with regionals, they've got 7 events over a 3-day period. And actually, the athletes know going in what the events are going to be because they released them weeks ago.
Right.
So you've got different regions every weekend, and the workouts are going to be tested. And if you're a high-level CrossFit athlete, you're working on all kinds of skills, all kinds of movements, time domains, everything, because you simply don't know what you're going to get at the Open, at the regionals, at the games. You have an idea based on what you've seen in the history of CrossFit, but you still don't know.
Right.
Ultimately, and just like you said, the concept of CrossFit is to be prepared for anything. And as we see, Sam Briggs was not prepared for the handstand walk.
Sure. Yeah, I think it sort of touches on a couple of things that we've discussed privately, and that is just simply the fact that, a lot of the events, as physical as they are, there's an extreme mental component to a lot of these, and so when you come up, I think this is one of the first times they've ever had a one and done event, where you get one shot at this, Can you think of another time?
I think the only
other than like a clean and jerk ladder or snatch ladder or something like that.
No, I think they had the max distance handstand walk at the games. I want to say 2 years ago.
Okay, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. It was on a football field. It was a long 100-yard walk, and you fall one time, you're done.
Okay.
So clearly, everybody at that level is prepared physically. They've worked this skill. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The mental aspect comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that are, barking that, the top 3, the real top 3 athletes didn't make in the cut, because of Sam Briggs getting 4th place. Well, was she the top 3 this weekend? No, she wasn't. She was 4th place. And like I said, my opinion is that I don't think that she should be extended an invitation, based on, fans complaining or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
or make any kind of exception because she did poorly on one event, but she did do well on the others. So
Yeah, and I think that's what has so many people up in arms because, when you look at her scores going across the board, in event one, she had a fifth place. And then in event two, which was the handstand walk, she dropped to 26, right? And that's really what killed her. But then when you look at events 3 through 6, she had a 1, 2, 1, 1, and then an 8, right? So, I think people are looking at that and looking at the scores for the competitors that are going through, and you can see that, Annie, she only had, one second place finish throughout the event, but she was more consistent, whereas Sam had much higher finishes in the majority of the events, and she messed up on one, and now she's not going because of this miscue, whether it was physical, mental, we don't know what happened, we don't know what's going through her mind that day. But, I think that's one of the things that people are looking at and making the argument that, yeah, they should give her an invite. And I think, maybe underneath all that, it's just we just want to see her perform.
yeah, I think that's absolutely what it is. The fans, just like any other sport, you want to see your favorite. You want to see your favorite player. You want to see your favorite team advance. So Sam Briggs probably has a pretty good following because she is a former games champ, and third place, nobody knows her name yet. So people are going to make that argument and say, oh well, Sam Briggs should have been. She should be going to the games, blah blah blah. But just like other sports, when you get the top two teams, let's say the Super Bowl, you get the Denver Broncos and the Seahawks. Everybody just knew the Broncos were going to win. Everyone knew it. They all wrote the Seahawks off, and then Seattle just stomps them.
Yeah.
So the underdogs, when they perform, they should reap the rewards of that. And in this case, it looks like Kristen Holte of in Europe, third place. So yeah, be prepared for anything. It's unfortunate for Sam. She did have one bad performance, but I'm sure she'll attack that weakness and come back next year, be even better. And the people out there need to realize that CrossFit's looking for consistency across the board and being prepared for everything, every skill they're going to throw at you, every strength, every movement, every time domain. They're looking for the top 85 percentile, not someone who wins 3 workouts, or was it 3? Yeah. So it looks like she won maybe 2 workouts in a second place.
She had 3 wins.
3 wins.
A second, a 5, and an 8.
Okay, so she had 3 wins out of 7. So clearly she's very dominant in certain areas, but she fell to 8th in one, and then all the way to 26th in another. So the people that beat her were more consistent across the board.
Yeah, and just kind of touching on what I was saying earlier about this sort of one and done event, I think this brings in a whole component that maybe people haven't considered. I doubt very seriously that Sam Briggs is a poor handstand walker. I bet 9 times out of 10 she could walk a football field left and right. It just so happened in this one event, maybe she put too much pressure on herself. Maybe there was something going on in her mind and she just wasn't focused. Who knows what it was? But for whatever reason, maybe just that mental piece wasn't there for her that day. And we've seen this come into play in so many different workouts and experience it personally when you do the workouts. That for me, I'm gonna have to side with you on this one and say, I don't feel like there should be a special exemption made for her in this case, simply because I feel like that would be CrossFit going against its own philosophy of GPP, obviously with the general physical preparedness, but also it creates this gray area. It kind of opens the door for this to happen in the future. And who's to say that's a bad thing? Certainly not me. I would love to see Sam perform, but I really am anti this gray area campaign we have going on in the world right now. I think the beauty of CrossFit is the fact that it's quantitative, and they've done a pretty good job of figuring out ways to measure this stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that is a bad thing for CrossFit if they let her in, and I would be opposed to that simply because I think that almost creates this favoritism with the sport of CrossFit. And if it wants to be considered a legitimate professional sport, you can't be playing favorites. And that brings up a whole lot of discussion, which we can maybe save for another episode. But I would like them to not invite her simply because now you're saying, you know, we're sticking to our guns here. These are what the events were. Everybody knew them. These are what the rules were, and she didn't make top 3.
Yeah.
So that's black and white.
It's black and white, you know, and I think one of the things that came to mind while you were saying that was just that, you know, I think that as a competitor, you know, and you're going and you're looking at these events, these WODs are all pre-released. You do have some notice as to what's going on. So, you know, they had a chance to prepare for this in a big way. But step outside of that and go to this event, right, and finish in the top 3. Okay, so now in your mind, you have competed against all these other competitors, and you're not going to see them again at the Open. They're out at this point. You know, so if you put one of those competitors back in the Open, you know, how does that change your mindset when you go to the Open and maybe you have to have a different strategy because XYZ athlete is competing now? You know, or maybe you have to put up a different time in a different event because XYZ athlete's competing now. You know, I think it changes the mentality and the strategy of those athletes going forward because it's adding in a competitor that they didn't plan on competing against in the first place.
Yeah, and I think by the Open you mean the games.
Oh, I'm sorry, the games,
right.
Yeah.
So I knew where you're going with that, and I completely agree. And I'll draw it parallel to the sport of strongman because I did compete, you know, professionally for 8 years in strongman. I'm a fan of strongman. I've followed their sport for years, and I'll come right out and say it: strongman plays favorites, and a lot of people, you know, are against that because I mean it's not black and white. There's this gray area, you know, for a long time, and I'm not privy to exactly what's going on now, but I know back when I was involved, you would get guys that simply got invites to World's Strongest Man based on who they were or what they had accomplished previously.
Yeah.
So if you were an up and comer, you know, like the ones that just beat out Sam Briggs, with the exception of Annie Thorisdottir, who's 2-time games champion, but if you're an up and comer and you had the exact same, you know, events, you compete in the exact same events, the same advantages, disadvantages. You both train, you have the exact same notice for the events, and you beat her, and then the CrossFit HQ comes out and says, "Oh, well, we're going to give an invite to Sam Briggs because she's Sam Briggs."
Right.
You know, that I mean, as a competitor, I'd be like, you know, well, that's crap because, you know, I took 3rd place.
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to be top 3, and you know, and like the parallel I was making with strongman is, if you're that up and comer guy and you've been beating this guy contest after contest at the, you know, the local ones, and then even bigger level, and then there's a lot of politics in strongman, but then that guy goes and gets the invite for the biggest competition of the year, whether it's the Arnold or World's Strongest Man, but you've been beating him the whole year? I mean, how is that fair?
Yeah, you know, and if you're, you know, let's say Sam Briggs did get that invite, you know, and let's say she goes on to beat Annie at the games, right? What kind of controversy would that create?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and 2, on top of that, would Sam even feel like she, you know, won that event?
Does she deserve it?
Yeah, she would probably, I mean, I know I would question whether or not I should have been there in the first place. And I know that, you know, obviously a lot of other people would question it as well because, A, you remove the black and white aspect of, look, we have the GPP, we have the general physical preparedness, here's the events in advance, we're not even surprising you with them, okay? So GPP sort of goes out the window to a degree because you know these athletes have experience with all these movements going in, and then you come back and you throw them in there. Yeah, I don't see that as being a positive thing for CrossFit either. I can't see there being a benefit to them. The only thing that I could potentially see is, you know, it draws more fans, maybe draws more viewership, but that has nothing to do with crowning the fittest on earth, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a bad move if they do that. It'd be a lot of politics. I think if you want to consider yourself a legitimate professional sport, you have to move away from that. You have to move away from playing favorites, and you know, other topics we can get into another time. You know, like I read an article the other day about why CrossFit's not a sport, and I'll just put this out here. Maybe we can address it in another episode. You know, and you know, at first I was like, okay, title, trying to grab your attention, just like most of these online social media articles and stuff. But I was like, okay, this will be an interesting read. So I just kind of skimmed it. And it's from a former regionals athlete. And so he had a bad experience at a regionals competition. And so, he talks about there's no professional judges. You look at every other professional sport, they have professional referees that are paid. This is what they do. Mm-hmm. And so, you go to the regionals level, it's someone who just started CrossFit 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And they're judging somebody to get to the games. And sometimes these movements come down to just, you got no rep 3 times based on this person's opinion, and the other guy was getting away with murder.
Sure.
So there's the judging is a question as to, how do you solve that long term so that you are considered a professional sport? And then the other one, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just let me touch on that for a second. Because obviously you can look at the major sports in North America, one of which being football, for example, where you do have the quote-unquote professional referees or judges or what have you, and they still have freaking instant replay.
Yeah.
So here we
True.
are paying a group of people
True.
to judge, right? But then we're going to have to question their professional paid judgment with video cameras.
Right.
Because human beings make mistakes. That's just the way it is. But then when you compare that to, say, or look at any of the sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, there's 3 or 4 umpires for a whole field. There's, 5 or 6 referees and umpires on a football field. CrossFit at least has 1 judge for every athlete. You know what I mean? So at least they're doing their best to put 1 set of eyes on an individual. And whether you call them professional or not, there's always going to be that human error, and no one's ever going to be satisfied. Hence instant replay. They're even, they even want to put that in every sport now. Instant replay,
right.
Because we can't trust this guy's judgment, even though we pay him 6 figures a year to make the call.
Right. And I don't think you'll ever get there in CrossFit. Instant replay, every single repetition
exactly.
To see if it was hitting the proper depth.
Was that a good one?
So yeah, that's a good topic for a debate. How does CrossFit, eventually go down that path of maybe, I know last year they did a judges course. You had to be a certified judge to judge people during the Open and approve their scores. So, I think they're going that way as it evolves. So they're seeing the need for it. They changed some of the rules in the Open. You had to have video if you're going to be an individual regionals competitor, and you have to be judged by a certified judge.
Sure.
So they are addressing the topic, but with a sport that's so much in its infancy, it's just going to take time.
Yeah, but even though, if you look at the general physical preparedness, or the GPP, whatever you want to call it, right, there's a certain amount that goes into every event as it comes to dealing with your judge as an athlete. You know what I mean? So if you're going to be generally prepared for anything, part of the event is dealing with the judge, right? So if your judge is no-repping you for whatever reason, I think it's important that the athlete find out as quickly as possible in that moment what the hell he needs to change, and at least change it in that moment, and not worry about trying to change something he cannot control, right? Because then you put the control in someone else's court. You're basically playing victim here. I'm victim of so and such is judging, and that's why I didn't make it.
Right.
Well, you know what? Stop and find out why your judge is no-repping you, and stop doing that, and then you can have that discussion with him when you're not being timed, or when you're not being counted.
Yeah.
Right. But at least be responsible in the moment. Don't be a victim and say, "Oh, I didn't make it because so and such a judge."
Yeah, and you had some people that have. I'm sure everybody's had, a harsh judge. I think you're absolutely right. There's no time to complain in a workout about the range of motion standard that your judge has set for you. You just ask, okay, what do I need to do to get a good rep? Go deeper, lock out. What is it? And then you just move forward.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're basically taking yourself out.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of sport, and I think CrossFit is definitely trying to raise their game, raise the standard by doing the judges course and requiring video for the individual level, so that you are getting the best people. The people that are doing because then they're judging their video, and you're seeing, somebody's idea of a full range of motion might not be the same as somebody else's. So, but now HQ is able to judge those videos and say, well, your reps were even good. so that video doesn't count. And then so I think they are, you know, seeing the need for it, to find the best. And you know, they've probably had people get to the regional level and not do well. It shouldn't have been there.
Absolutely.
Based on what their standards were. But you know, like you said, it comes back to GPP and being prepared for anything, whether it be a slightly more range of motion than you thought because of your judges' standards, whether it be a different movement that you haven't worked and maybe you haven't seen that movement in 2-3 years, you know, tested on a CrossFit Games or regionals level. So you know, this year they throw in the handstand walk, and you get people that blew that event that don't go to the games, like Sam Briggs. You know, we talked about it earlier, you know, in private, that Elijah Muhammad from the Southeast smoked a lot of the events. Strict handstand push-up was his undoing. And here's a guy who rack jerks 405 at 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's not a strength issue.
Right.
It's simply he didn't work that skill, the strict handstand push-ups. So, you know, he's a solid guy, and I'm sure he's like going back to the drawing board. Okay, well, here's something I need to work on. I've got a chink in my armor, and if I want to get games level, I've got to be prepared for anything, because then you're going to get to the games and they're going to mix it up. They're going to throw in stuff that you've never seen before. Last year,
Right.
pig flip.
Absolutely.
You know, you had straw man movements in there. You had the pig flip. You had the Iditarod sled pull. So and nobody knew that. You know, nobody going into the games knew they were going to be doing that. So, you know, we've spoken about this many times. If you're going to find the best athlete, it's got to be things that nobody knows they're getting tested on. Now, everybody's getting the same advantage here. Everybody's getting, you know, 10 days, 14 days, whatever it is, depending on when your regionals is, based on the events. Everybody knows that it's going to be the same events. You know, they know what the movements are going to be. If you want to find the best athlete, my opinion is, at least the most prepared athlete, as far as CrossFit goes, my opinion is nobody should know the events. Now, one contest doesn't make the best athlete. You know, one game doesn't make the best team, you know, which is why a lot of sports have they have series, you know, but certain sports, you just can't have more than one game, like football. But in CrossFit, it's long term. So, you know, just because Sam Briggs didn't make the games this year doesn't mean that she's not going to come back next year and win and then go on to be the best female CrossFit athlete of all time. Because it's more than just one regionals. It's more than just one contest. It's, you know, there's several, and she's got a lot of years ahead of her. So, you know, GPP, I think, means being prepared for anything, and that's the way you find the best athlete, is throwing stuff at them they've never seen before. They've never practiced, right? So,
yeah, how can they adapt in this situation?
Exactly.
How is their body going to perform under this particular load versus that particular load? You know, I think it just comes down to, you know, my personal opinion is that, you know, no one should whine over a WOD. You know, there should be no whining over a WOD. I mean, if you're going to...
There's a lot of whining in CrossFit, though.
No
being
shit,
a CrossFit gym owner, I deal with a lot of whining. Every time burpees comes up. Weird.
Yeah.
Oh, we just did burpees on Monday. It's Friday. We're doing burpees again?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you weren't supposed to tell him that I was the one complaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, but seriously, I mean, really, if you're going to call yourself a CrossFitter and you're going to buy into the concept of GPP, then shut the fuck up and just do the work.
Do the work.
Really.
Seriously.
And these athletes that I've seen show up for a competition, you know, or, you know, and complain about this WOD or that movement, or it's geared to this person or that person, you know what? Hey, welcome to life. There's really no such thing as fairness. I mean, like I think you said in our scratch run, you know, there's no one workout, you know, that can prove fitness over all people.
Right. I mean, what is the most fair workout across the board that tests every single modality, you know, every single time domain, which is not possible, yeah, to find the best person?
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And like you know, the example that I have that we, you know, again, we talked about it earlier in private, is, you've got people that complain before the workout. Okay, you're whiny. You don't like to do burpees. Okay, I get it. I hate burpees too, right? Not too many people like to do burpees. You're going to complain. Not your favorite thing to do. Okay, I understand. But in a competition setting, to complain after the fact when you knew what you were going to have to do because it didn't suit your ability or your leverages or your strengths, I mean, that's just, you're in the wrong sport. Go be a specialist somewhere because this is a sport of non-specialization. And there's not one workout that tests all capacities like we just discussed. So, my example is, I worked with a local contest out here in Phoenix, and I happened to be the head judge for this event, and I was in charge of creating the workouts. I was not in charge of creating the matchups. So I did have an athlete in the contest, but with my strength bias, I was like, okay, let me see the previous events. Okay, these are the previous events where you haven't really had an event that just totally was geared towards strength. So the 4 ladies that were involved in the contest were all tremendous athletes. So I created a workout, and it had deadlifts, wall balls, and ball over shoulder. So, those are the 3 movements that I tested, and I'm not sure the rep scheme. I think it was like 21, 15, 9 deadlift and wall ball, and once you got through that, then you had 15 ball over shoulder. So I remember after the person, one of the female athletes that lost, somebody in her corner, whether it was her or somebody in her corner, it came back to me that, well, she was upset because there was no pull-ups. And I mean, it was like I was caught off guard. I was like, what do you mean there's no pull-ups? Why does the workout have to have pull-ups? It's like, because you're good at them?
Right.
Well, it's like, hey, there's no pull-ups. Why is there no pull-ups? I'm really good at those. Well, everybody signed up for this event not knowing the workout. Nobody knew the workout except for me.
Right.
I was the only person, and I didn't design it for anybody. And the girl that won was not my athlete, was from somewhere else. And she was a beast, and she dominated. And she's biased towards strength. She's got a huge deadlift, about 400-pound deadlift. She destroyed the wall balls, destroyed the ball over shoulder, and then in the next workout she destroyed that one too. Now, she's probably not the best at pull-ups. She probably would have lost if it was deadlifts and pull-ups or wall balls and pull-ups. But then couldn't she complain and say, well, why was there pull-ups instead of this?
Right, exactly.
So it's only one workout, and you're never going to find the best athlete in one workout. And that's why regionals, and that's why the games, and that's why the open are multiple events. And the originals is 7, the games is usually more, and they're looking for that 85th percentile, like we said. And in my opinion is that I think the open actually should be longer. It should be longer because what you have now is you've got 5 workouts, 1 a week, and you can only fit so much into 5 weeks. So they're always going to be missing something. So this year there was no heavy snatch, there was no heavy clean, there was no heavy overhead. So that's just the way it worked out. But my personal opinion is, if you want to advance the most overall balanced athlete, you have to have more workouts, test more things, and then it also prevents people from doing the workout over and over and over and over and mastering that workout and then submitting that score versus doing it once, having not known the workout until 24 hours ago, and you're just generally prepared.
Yeah. That's
right?
Yeah.
So that's how I argue that point.
Sure.
Because I think some people would say, well, no, I don't think it should be longer because you're still, then you're testing more things, and now you're not constantly varying it. When I would say, well, yeah, that's how you are, because now you can't repeat a workout. You can't repeat the open workouts 3-4 times for 8 weeks. There's no way you can do that. You're going to beat your body down. You're going to throw off your whole training, and and that's the reality. People are redoing the workouts. I don't think you can prevent that, but I think the way you find the best athlete, again, it goes back to the person that does it one time. That's their score. You don't get a do-over.
Right.
Just
Exactly.
like a contest.
Well, I mean, again, GPP, right? It is what it is. You show up, you've trained to the best of your ability, something gets thrown at you, you put down your performance. I do find it interesting that so many people can do the workouts repeatedly, because I know we've personally seen athletes add 50 to 100 points to their score, depending on how many reps were available in that particular workout. So, you can take a good athlete and show him or allow him time or her time to do the same workout 2 or 3 times in a week, and you will see a drastic improvement. And so, from that aspect, it may be a negative thing, but then it comes back to that mental preparedness thing that we sort of touched on with Sam. She had one shot at that handstand walk in 3 minutes. So how many athletes would we then knock out, of the regional because they had a one and done workout where they just screwed the pooch?
Right.
Right?
I
Changed
agree.
the game entirely.
Changes the game up. Yeah. I agree. I mean, there's definitely more than one athlete out there that, had one bad event that took them out of the hunt. And the one and done aspect, I mean, just like you said, people have talked about, oh, well, what if that handstand workout was just 3 minutes max distance, and you get, let's say you get 2 drops or 3 drops or drop as much as you want. Totally changes that up.
Oh, God, yeah.
Right. Which is how the open is.
Right. Right.
So it is interesting because I know from the people out here locally, and I'm sure it's I think it's going on nationally too, is even high level athletes are repeating these workouts. Mm-hmm. And I've tuned into some of the webinars with some of the top coaches, and you typically tell you this is a workout you could repeat twice or 3 times, or this is a one and done, or this is a workout you want to do Friday morning and then maybe Monday morning, because of the nature of that workout. Also because you're going to learn how you respond to that workout, maybe make some adjustments. But again, it goes back to GPP.
Right.
Shouldn't you be prepared as an athlete, someone who trains these movements all the time? Because, the movements that they're throwing at us in the open are all things that we've done. Maybe not in that capacity or time domain or paired, in a couplet or however they do it. But shouldn't you be prepared for that?
You absolutely should. I mean, that is the definition of GPP. And, I think as much gray area as we can eliminate using GPP, I think so much the better. I feel like in watching people perform these exercises, watching them perform these WODs, it seems like the common recurring comment is, I just wanted to see how it felt. I want to see how my lungs felt, or I wanted to see how my legs felt, or I wanted to see how my shoulders held up, right? So there's definitely a lot of strategery, happening there, if you will. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that, because that's within the confines of the structure as it exists right now. But, to your point, if you did allow a one and done and that's it, it would completely change the face of who went where.
Yeah, I think it would. And that's more of the concept of, any other contest is, you don't go to a contest, a local contest, and you don't get a screw up.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get a, hold on, I wasn't ready yet.
You just get to whine about it when you screw up, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's true of just about every sport, especially like, say, strongman, that I, competed in for so long. You have, let's say farmer's walk is your bad event, and you get a farmer's walk from max distance, and you take a bad step, your grip slips because you didn't set it right the first time, and you drop it 5 feet after the start, and you screw the pooch, like you say.
Absolutely.
On that workout. You can't go back and say, oh, you know what, can I do that one again? Can I redo this?
Yeah, you can at home.
Yeah, you can.
When you get home, you can set it up.
Well, there is that guy, and then that brings up a whole story that I've got that you just sparked in my head, is the guy who sits at home and just quarterbacks it.
Sure.
Right? So it's not the same. This is a mental sport, and it's not just physically what can you do in your own gym on your own time, etc. It's, can you perform today?
Absolutely.
everybody can perform at their own gym when they do the 3-2-1 go. Everybody can do that, but can you perform anywhere, anytime? So
I think that's a great place to leave this one. I mean, my final thoughts on this are, if you're gonna call yourself a CrossFitter and you're gonna run around in the harden the fuck up T-shirt and the stronger people are harder to kill shorts or whatever, hey, shut up and just do the work.
do the work.
Just do the work, man. Don't complain, just do the work.
I like it.
Yeah. So I think we'll leave it right there, unless you have any final thoughts there, Scott.
No, I agree. I think some topics that we could get into for next week. Maybe kipping pull-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Always some controversy
Always
there.
the controversy, yeah.
How about high rep Olympic
Oh
lifting?
no, that's
The devil.
Satan himself, yeah.
So maybe throw some comments our way. Let us know what you want to discuss, and maybe we'll talk about it some for the next episode.
Absolutely. Till then, have a good one, guys, and we will catch you on the next episode.
All right, take care, guys.